Hello, I'm Michael, and this is Tarot by the Tree. This is an exciting day for me. We're completing our discussions of the major arcana, the cards 1 to 22, and their travels through the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge. This is card number 21, the Wheel of Fortune. Well, 5 years ago, I discovered that the cards made sense if they were laid on one of the trees, and then card number 11, the balance, was left out, suspended, and it balanced the other tree, the tree of knowledge. That way, the first 10 cards lay on the first tree, and the second 10 cards laid on the second tree. 2 cards are left out. Number 11, suspended over top, it's the balance, and that's part of the symbol of Tarot by the Tree. The other card is the Fool, and we'll discuss him tomorrow. About 5 years ago, I discovered that justice balances the two trees, and that was exciting to me. It enabled me, after years of trying to make sense of the tarot cards and their relationship with Kabbalah, it was a bit of a eureka moment. In the Bible, they talk about two trees in the Garden of Eden. This is in Genesis. They talk about the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I was in my teens, and for decades, I learned the tarot cards. I read books, made notes, drew pictures, all the things that we all do. Later on, for decades as well, I studied Kabbalah. About 10 years on my own, reading books that were suggested to me and things that I found. And then another decade in a Kabbalah organization. And Jocelyn is still an active member of that. Through this progression of tarot cards into Kabbalah, formalized Kabbalah, while still working on the cards, I discovered this system. I'll just put a note here that modern Kabbalah has nothing to do with tarot cards. There may be there is a historic connection, but if you were to study Kabbalah now, you wouldn't really find anything on the tarot in Kabbalah. Now, Jocelyn has provided me with something. The other day I was talking about Kabbalah and the cards, and I said a sentence, something like, Kabbalah teaches you lots of stuff, or many things, or something like that. And she said, that's the best you could do there, and I had to agree. It was pretty lame. She's helped me out a little bit. I'm just going to read this. This is an overview. This is not specifically to do with the card, but what this is, it gives us a little more of a grounding in Kabbalah, remembering that the cards were designed and drawn to teach the practical wisdom of Kabbalah as encoded in the two trees. We'll get into more of that in just a minute. All right, we're just going to step aside for a minute, and we're going to look at Kabbalah. My wife, Jocelyn, is a student of the wisdom of Kabbalah and was not impressed with my description of Kabbalah as a study of many things. She asked if I would mind reading the following as a short explanation, and of course I wouldn't. I welcome it, and this is it. Kabbalah is a methodology for the expansion of human awareness to the connection of desires. In such expanded awareness, we start perceiving the force that created and sustains our reality, which lets us know more about the world we live in, its cause and effect relationships, and which makes us kinder, more approachable, and more contributive members of society. We are like a cog in a wheel, and when we act against the natural system, which is fully interconnected and interdependent, we clog the system and it becomes dysfunctional. And we will echo some of those sentiments in what we look at today. as I mentioned, one of the most exciting things when I first started to see with the suspension of the 11th card and the two trees, I started to see the cards make sense. They reflected each other and they magnified their meanings. At the bottom of the first tree, we encountered the 10th card, the Wheel of Fortune, and you can see that in the four corners are represented a human, an eagle, a lion, and an ox or a bull. We worked our way all the way down the first tree to this card. As we worked down the tree to this card, on the other tree, we come down to the world. Now you can look at the two similarities. These are the two base cards of the two trees, and they are, in a way, renditions or copies of each other. Each one has the four beasts in the corner. Each one has a person in the center. When we looked at the first card, the Wheel of Fortune, its meaning was you are caught up in events and forces beyond your control. Go with the flow, rise with the tide. This is something you're going to have to get through. On the second trip, this is the same card, but things have changed. There is no longer mystical symbols in the center. There is no longer an animalistic human rising up and a serpent going down.
Did you describe the symbols on that card? I don't remember.
Well, we're going to get into the symbols in a minute, and yeah, they're a little mysterious. So the similarity between the two cards is great. The difference is the center of the card. Rather than mystical symbols, the ascension of the animal human and the descending of the serpent, we have a human. She appears to be a woman surrounded in a wreath, a garland. She's holding two wands. In the corners of the card, there is a human, an eagle, a bull, and a lion. Unlike the first card, these creatures are not mystical. They don't have wings. They appear as they do in real life. In the corners, we have at the bottom the bull and the lion. At the top, we have the eagle and the human. As I mentioned, these four things are on the wheel, on the world card, and but they are not as mysterious. In the world card, we're going to take a little look at the person. They have an aura around them, a force field, if you were, and it's a wreath. A wreath is a symbol of past successes. If you remember in the Seven of Staves, the hero returns home. On his staff is a wreath, and around his head is a wreath. Past accomplishments, real life deeds. The woman in the world card holds two wands. They're both the same, and they appear to be the same wand as the magician holds at the top of the Tree of Life. In a reading, there are some things that we can tell about this card. If the first card were to show up, the world, we would talk about events beyond your control. In this card, we're talking much more about your own sense of control. In a reading, if this card is laid, some of the things it says is, you must arm yourself with knowledge and skills. You can't arm yourself with potions, amulets, chants, spells. You must arm yourself with real world knowledge and real world skills. As you go up the second tree, this will protect you and will enable you to see things as they really are. In this card, you no longer see humans, eagles, bulls, and lions as mysterious, magical, and mystical creatures. They appear to be a natural part of the earth. This is a card about practicality. Her nakedness means no pretense, and the reliance in this card is on logic. There is the element of learning from your past mistakes, and that is how we learn. This card is a person who, through the first journey on the tree of life, has made mistakes and has learned. And when you think about it, at least when I think about it, it's a little bit of a sobering thought when I realize that most of what I know now is through a mistake that I made then. The making of mistakes is part of the learning of real life knowledge. If this card is laid in a reading, it also tells you to work with what you know. Fall back on your real life experience. This is not a card that is inviting you to new experiments or the hopes of new belief systems. This is a card that tells you whatever is unknown is of an earthly origin. That is the wisdom that has been learned on this second tree. Okay, why don't we turn to some of the questions now?
I wonder if we could go back to that card with the Wheel of Fortune and the letters there. So
the letters spell tarot, or if you look at it backwards, it's rota, which also has some meaning. It has a compass-like sign, and there are the signs which refer to the 4 parts of earth: earth, wind, earth, air, fire, and water. Because these 2 cards are each at Malkuth, they're each at the bottom of the 2 trees, they each have to do with earth. The first card is divided up into that ancient 4 parts of earth, and the symbols are those 4 parts.
And each of the creatures is reading a book. Would you say that would be the Torah?
Yeah, it would make sense, sure. Maybe the Zohar. I just don't know what they're reading, but this is a card more about mysticism. So they're not reading cookbooks or roadmaps. Like they're reading something that's got a belief system encoded into it.
So the Wheel of Fortune, the 10th Sephra on the Tree of Knowledge. How does this card help describe the suits, 10 of Cups in particular?
Okay, the 10s are nice and easy to understand. They mean the end of a cycle, the completion of a journey. And we're going to see that. Which one do you want to start with?
The 10 of Cups.
10 of Cups. Completion of a journey. If this card is laid, that's what we're going to be talking about. All of the 10s are going to be some aspect of that. The first one, 10 of Cups, happiness. One possible end of a journey is a double rainbow of happiness with children, a soulmate, expansive countryside before you. One possible end to a cycle of work and plans is joy and fulfillment.
How does the Wheel of Fortune describe the staffs?
The 10 of Staffs. End of a journey, end of a cycle. And this is the first one we saw was joy. A great one. This is the end of a cycle. It's a little bit different. This is all your plans. You're carrying all these plans. You're managing all these plans. You're moving your plans ahead. but you're staggering under the weight. You can't see very clearly where you're going. This is a card of it's working, your plans are succeeding, but this is not sustainable. It is unlikely you can carry this for much longer without misstepping, without making a mistake and risking quite a lot. This is one of the possible ends of a cycle where you are succeeding, but you're carrying all the weight and it's not sustainable.
How does the Wheel of Fortune describe the Ten of Coins?
Ten of Coins is a fascinating card. And we do see an aspect of it in the Queen of Coins with controlled thought and success and maturity. This is a joyous card that is archetypical in what it represents to any person of age. This is a man, in this case, could be a man or a woman. They're looking out over their estate, and in the distance, they see young people who are going to carry on their tradition. He's got his pets set aside. It's a place of abundance and security. This is what we would all want at the end of a journey, the idea that we are settled, secure, and our progeny are carrying on what we've started.
Is there any significance of the man looking towards his estate possibly, but the woman is looking in the opposite direction, or maybe at him?
Well, I don't really know. It does look as if like if I had to guess, the young man is the old man's son, and he's looking toward maintenance of the estate. And that's his main love. And the woman is looking toward the man. That's her main love. That's one possible thing. The other could be the reverse, that she's the old man's daughter and that she's looking to this young man with love, and he's really looking, oh, look what I'm about to inherit. So I just don't know.
How does the Wheel of Fortune card help describe the Ten of Swords?
This is a card of reality. This is a card of logic, rational thinking. The end of a cycle, the end of a journey, the end of a plan can result in absolute failure. This is a failure where, although you were powerful, your power resulted in vanquishing you. Part of the use of your power scaled up the terms of engagement until you were completely defeated, utterly defeated. And that is one of the possible ends of a cycle.
Getting back to the card, what do the human, eagle, bull, and lion represent?
I don't know. I've worked hard. Like, one idea was the two bottom figures, the bull and the lion. They represent the two animals in our life. One of them we use the cattle for milk and meat. The lion is another animal that we fear, we guard against. It's the two animals, carnivore and herbivore. Above the mammals, the animals, we have the eagle in flight, and we have the human in knowledge. That's one possible idea. I kind of like that. I don't really see where it goes or how it clarifies anything. Many people would like to liken these things to signs of the zodiac, Taurus, Leo, and so on. I don't personally understand the connection of horoscope zodiacs to tarot cards. My understanding is that tarot cards were invented, created, and drawn for one reason, and that was to illustrate the practical knowledge of Kabbalah as represented through the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge.
And they could also represent qualities.
Yeah, well, absolutely, they could, and you could assign qualities to each of these figures too. What I see for the purpose of tarot cards is that in the world, you're seeing things as they really are. On your first journey, represented by the Wheel of Fortune, you are seeing things like the Sphinx, like winged people and cattle. You're seeing things in an imaginary, mystical way.
Why is the figure a woman?
And this is another contentious issue, much discussed issue. Is she a woman? And this is something up for discussion, and some people say that's the purpose of the banner or scarf wrapped around him, is to hide the reality of her sex. For the purposes of the card, I don't know what difference it makes if it's male or female or transsexual or what, but there is discussion about who this figure is, what she is. She holds those two wands. Interesting that the magician just holds a single wand, but these two wands suggest the separation of the two sexes, and the tips on the wands suggest the polarity of male and female. There could be some discussion, some ideas about the nature of gender in this card. I'm just not sure.
And why is she naked?
Her nakedness means no pretense. That's the whole point. On the first trip through the tree, everything was unusual and mystical. They would have to puff up. They would have to pretend. They would have to do what they think was required. But after that experience has been achieved, you no longer have to try to fit in with things, or when in Rome, do as the Romans do. She is her own person. She doesn't need to apologize or make excuses. If what she doesn't know, she's willing to learn. So the nakedness simply means, and we've seen this in other cards, there is no pretense. There is no bravado, no kind of guise that she's under.
What is the role of magic and mysticism in the Wheel of Fortune and the World cards?
In the Wheel of Fortune, we touch on a lot of mystical things, from the wheel and the symbols to the characters in the corners to Typhon working his way up and the serpent descending. In the second card, we have a total relief of that. This is a down-to-earth card. There are no magical symbols. There are no fanciful creatures. The role of mysticism in this card is leave it alone. It's not part of what this card is teaching you. This card is to fall back on earthly knowledge and practical experience.
What about, there's a significance that each figure is in a cloud. What was the cloud representing?
The cloud is always imagination, things not yet materialized, and we can see the clouds in the corners of the Wheel of Fortune as well. There is something not known. There is something unrealized in these clouds, and I'm not exactly sure in the World card, where we're really looking at practical things, what the clouds mean. I think there may be some significance to these animals that I'm not fully aware of right now.
Final thoughts.
For this card, the final thoughts are: stay to your rational thinking and rely on your personal experience. This is not a card where you're going to be researching in books and asking your friends advice. The suggestion of this card is that all you can really rely on is your past experiences and your logic and rational mind. This concludes our journey through the two trees. We'll touch on the Fool just as a complete wrap-up. Tarot cards and the Tree of Life, and they work their way into our society, and sometimes they may appear in ways that don't really make sense to a lot of people. But Shane was came across in a Marvel comic book an interesting picture, and you can see in this picture we've got Magneto surrounded by a circle. He's got that purple cloth descending through his body. He's holding two wands, and in each of the corners we have a superhero. It is very clearly an homage to the World card. And it wasn't really part of the story. It wasn't done, and there's no explanation given, but I just think it's amazing how some of the images of tarot cards do find their way into our lives in ways that we don't always realize or can't imagine at first. Thank you. That's it. That's the first two journeys through the trees from top to bottom. We'll look at the final card, the aspirant, the everyman, the fool tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.